There's a healing going on. There's a healing going on. And I say, oh, rock my soul. Oh, yeah. I said, oh, rock my soul. Let me walk to the banks of the river of love, where current runs deep, baptized in the one, where there's no separation, and the light is all you see. Honoring all our differences, and love will set us free. Father God, there's a healing going on. Father God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father God, there's a healing going on. And I said, oh, rock my soul, yeah. I said, oh, rock my soul. Take it away. Let me walk to the banks of the river of love, where current runs deep, baptized in the one, where there's no separation, and the light flows. Honoring all our differences, and love will set us free. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. Mother, Father, God, there's a healing going on. I said, oh, rock my soul. One more time. Oh, rock my soul. One more time. Oh, rock my soul. Sherry's going to sing to us about God and what we are here in service for. Use me, God.
Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here on the vine as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth or the stars, are all of creation. God is creator, makes all things new. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Command my hands, what must they do? Command my life, it's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new, needing us to shine its light as me, as you. Join us. So use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. to shine its light as me, as you.
Everyone,
Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. One more time. Show me all that I must do.
hallelujah. So now, beloved ones, let's all join hands with the neighbor next to you, and we sing, "Surely, surely the presence of the Lord is in this place." Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
Let us pray. Surely the presence of the Lord is here because each and every one of us, the embodiment of spirit, the embodiment of love, the embodiment of oneness, the embodiment of all that is, we exist. We exist to shine the light that is God, that is the essence of who we are. And today we come together to remember that, to deepen our consciousness in that, to raise ourselves in that truth. That God and each and every one of us, in essence, in potential, in reality, are one and the same. And so it is, and so let it be. Amen and amen. You may be seated. Good morning. Welcome to Unity on the River. I am Reverend Ogun Holder, senior minister here, in case we had not had the chance to meet. Thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us, whether you are here in person, you're watching online, whenever you're watching our service. I want to take a moment right off the top of the beginning of the service to honor and acknowledge those of us in this congregation who may be veterans. Veterans Day is tomorrow. So to acknowledge those of you who may have served at some point in time, if you are here and you'd like to stand so that we can recognize you, I would love for you to do that. And to thank you for your service. Regardless of how we may feel about military, conflict, armed forces, whatever, regardless of how we may feel, the truth is that we are and we have the liberties that we do have in this country because of the way others have served, especially in the past. So I want to acknowledge those of you who have done that and who continue to do that for us. I also want to acknowledge those of us who helped create this absolute wonderful service this morning, starting with our band and musicians over here who always do an awesome job. Our choir and singers, awesome job today, Barry and Sherry. Our music director, Meg Rain, and facilitating today, Gina Jeunesse. Thank you, Gina.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gina Jeunesse, facilitating today. First of all, Unity on the River live stream service. So could we just say good morning to anybody live streaming with us today? Good morning, streamers. Welcome. Just a reminder, too, you can watch us on YouTube Live or recorded. The services are all available on podcast platforms. Just search for Unity on the River, Sunday Sermons. And is anybody here celebrating service with us for the first time today? Is there anybody here today new? Not today. Whoa. Okay. Nobody gets that flower. All right. So Unity on the River is a center for celebration, transformation, inspiration, spirit-centeredness, oneness, and joy. Please hold these truths in your heart as we say our vision for ourselves and the world. Let's say our vision statement together. Awakened to and transformed by divine love, we are an expanding, compassionate, inclusive beacon of light. And our mission statement, transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. I have some brief announcements. Next Saturday, the 16th at 9 a.m., it's 9 to 1, Compassionate Communication Level 2 with moi. So if you would like to show up, if you've taken Level 1 with me before or have done personal coaching, please feel free. You can sign up in the bookstore or for online. Saturday, November 23, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. is National Adoption Day's Shining Star Extravaganza. This will be hosted by Child and Family Services of Merrimack Valley. Leslie Smith will be there. A variety talent show is happening, a raffle for a trip to Williamsburg, Virginia. And we have raffle tickets today in the bookstore for you to purchase. Sign up also. Coming up Wednesday, November 27 is our annual Thanksgiving potluck and open mic night. Sign up for the potluck online at the bookstore or via the website, and all open mic acts must be previewed and reviewed on either our November 17 or November 24 service with Keith from band after our Sunday service. All right, and now's the time for us to greet each other in love with either a handshake or a hug. I invite you to say, I see you, I see your beauty, I see your magnificence, I see the divine in you. Namaste.
Namaste, everyone. I want to introduce Tammy Morosky to you. She is going to help me in this lovely, lovely song that came to me out of a dream. And so take a breath with us. In the temple of my body, there is an altar in my heart, and I go standing naked, and there
darling, my own. And he whispers, you are never alone. And I need this. It is food for my soul. In the temple, at the altar, I am home. I am in the temple of my body. There is an altar in my heart, and I go there, standing naked, and there is God, and she holds me. You are my darling, my own. And he whispers, you are never alone. And I need this. It is food for my soul. In the temple, at the altar, I am home. I am
Thank you. That was beautiful. Speaking of being whole, we are continuing our journey through the 15 conscious commitments. I was told this morning we have more copies in the bookstore. If you have not picked up a copy yet, regardless of if you are in a study group or not, we highly advise you to pick up a copy of this book. These commitments are really invitations into us living, leading, indeed realizing our wholeness. This is the journey we're always on as spiritual beings. In case you didn't know, spoiler alert, you're whole. And our journey is to not just believe that and embrace it, but to live as though it were true. Because if we examine our lives, again, sorry, only room under the bus for one. When I examine my life, many of the decisions that I've made in the past less so now, but even still some today, reflect that I'm still working to live and lead from that truth, that I am whole. That life is not happening to me, but it's a journey of raising, expanding my consciousness to realize that life is happening by me, through me, and finally as me. That the wholeness that is God, the oneness that is God, the love that is God is also me. And I can live and lead from that place. We talked about part of that journey is how we communicate with each other, with candor, with honesty, with openness, by revealing ourselves rather than hiding what we feel and what we believe, and having sometimes it might be a difficult conversation, but it's an honest conversation. And when we speak in honesty, only good things happen. Only connection happens. And we've also been talking about how a lot of what we say and believe begins with our thoughts, because it begins with the meaning and the story that we've made up about what's happening. And we got to reframe the story. Last week we talked about the work by Byron Katie about how we reframe the story that we first latch onto about something that's going on in our life. And in order to do that, we've got to realize that what we believe, what we assign a meaning or a label to, isn't necessarily true. Well, it's not true at all. Not even necessarily. It's not true at all. See, I'm still working with it. It's not true at all. It's a label or meaning we've assigned based on past experiences, but mostly based on our fears. And when we can realize that that's what we habitually do, and we can reframe the story to realize that the opposite is just as true, if not even truer than the story we've made up, then the magic begins to happen. But why, again, do we start with creating these stories and these meanings and these labels? Why are we still, by default, more often than not, again, room under the bus for one, why am I still, more often than not, by default, coming from that place of fear? Because, as you will read this week, if you haven't yet, as human beings, or ego especially, but as human beings, we have three core wants: security, approval, and control. When you think about it, mostly everything we say, think, believe that we want stems from these three. Security. We want to feel safe. We want to feel safe no matter when we are, where we are, who we are. I think we can all agree about that. We want approval. We want people to love us. More importantly, we want them to like us. And control. Because when we believe and feel we're in control, then we feel safe. When we're in control, we create the life in front of us in such a way that people will love us and like us, and therefore we get our approval. So basically, a lot of what we say we want and believe, and the labels and meanings we attach to things, comes from these three needs. But here's the problem, though. When we live from or lead from a place of not being conscious, we believe that all these three things come from outside of us. We believe that something out there, when we get it, will make us feel safe. When we live in the better neighborhood, when we have enough money, because when we have enough money, therefore, anything that comes up, we don't have to worry about how we fix it. So we get stuck in this cycle of equating money with our feeling of safety and well-being. But as the notorious B.I.G., a.k.a. Biggie Smalls, told us, more money, more problems. If you don't know who that is, go look him up. Don't play it out loud at work. We believe that these things, like approval, come from outside of us. How do we know that we are loved and liked? Because people tell us that. Great job you did, Reverend Ogun. So that's how you know you like me. I think I've shared this before. I know when you think I've given a good talk. You know how I know this? I'm going to tell you this, and it'll forever change what you say to me in the receiving line going out. And by the way, let's back up. This is the meaning and label that I have assigned to it. Okay, let's just admit that. I'll admit that. This is the meaning and label I have assigned. So when you're going down the receiving line, I believe that if you think I've given a good talk, you tell me. You say things like, oh, Reverend Ogun, that was a great talk today. You were speaking just to me. It's like, and stuff like that. The meaning and label I've assigned to believing you didn't think it was a great talk was when you say in the receiving line, isn't the music amazing here today? I just love coming here Sunday morning because it lifts my spirits. It's true. It's true. Now, it's only true because I've made it up in my head. That's what I have made up in my head. So it took me a while to go like, you know what? That's all made up. That's my inner critic, which I am the worst of, as we all are. It's my inner critic deciding about 30 seconds after I sit down for my talk, oh yeah, that was a good talk. Oh my God, that sucked so much. And then when you say what you're saying going out there, then I assign the meaning to it. Because here's the thing, when I think I've given a great talk, it don't matter what you say going out there, I gave a great talk. When I don't think I've given a great talk, and you tell me how great the music was, in my head, oh my God, that talk sucked. They can't even tell me it was good. You see how that kind of works? You see how that works? And then, if I'm not careful, I go down the spiral of, oh, I didn't give like 3 good talks in a week now. That they may not come back next week. They may decide they need a different minister this is how it happens. This is how it happens. Then I think you don't like me, and then I got to try my best to not like you. Because I think my security and approval and control of what happens here is determined by what you say to me and how you feel about things. I've placed it outside of myself. That's when I'm walking in those unconscious moments. Our goal, and what this work invites us to, is to not commit to living below the line, not commit to living from the belief that security, approval, and control comes from outside, comes from people, circumstances, and conditions. We have to shift that commitment to living below the line and go above the line. But part of how we keep ourselves below the line is by doing a little game I like to call the if-only game. The if-only game. If only I gave a knock it out of the park talk every Sunday, you all would give more money on Sunday. This is a story I'm telling myself. Okay? We tell ourselves a lot of stories. If only I lost 15 pounds, I would look more attractive and somebody would love me. If only I had $30,000, $40,000 in my savings account, I could stop worrying. If only, fill in the blank, then fill in the blank would happen. We play the if-only game, and it keeps us below the line because we believe these external conditions are going to determine our internal state of being. When we live and lead consciously, we realize that's bass backwards, and we flip it. We flip it. before we get there, let me share with this. This is why also we look outside of ourselves, because we bought into these myths of scarcity. Part of the reason that we feel like we need to have is because part of the reason we want stuff is because we believe we don't have it, okay? We believe we don't have it, therefore we want it. In other words, there's a sense of lack and scarcity in our thinking and our belief system. If I don't feel it, that means I don't have it, therefore I want it. So there's a great book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. And she shares some toxic myths about scarcity. Here's the first toxic myth. There's never enough. The never enoughness. Okay? We see other people with so much more than we have, make up a story that they feel so much better because of what they have. And therefore, if I could get that, I would feel better. But because they have it and I don't, clearly there's not enough to go around. So therefore, I got to do what it takes to get. Because then when I get, I will feel. It generates a sense of FOMO. You know what FOMO is? The fear of missing out. The fear of missing out. People are having more fun than I am. And Facebook has really contributed to this. People are having more fun than I am. They're going more places than I am. Their lives look so much better than mine. What am I missing out on? And I get this sense of lack in my life. The second myth of scarcity, more is better. More is better. If there's a mantra you've heard me say here from the time I started working here, that I always tell like volunteers and volunteer group leaders and people who work in the office, when they come to me and say, Reverend Ogun, we should yada, 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 and blah, 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 and what do I say? Guys, less is more. Dial it back. Dial it back. We think that more is better. Part of the reason we think more is better is because we compare ourselves to each other. Remember what I like to say about comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. When we compare, more often than not, for some reason, we always compare ourselves to others who have more than we do and feel worse about ourselves. And we think that if we have more of everything and anything, it'll feel better. And we also kind of apply that to the quote-unquote good things as well. You know, I should be more spiritual, so I'm going to read more books about it. How many of you, like me, have more books on your shelf that you haven't read yet, that you can't possibly read probably in the rest of your lifetime? Right? But for some reason, we feel if we get more of these books, somehow, I don't know, the wisdom is going to, by osmosis, come into ourselves. I don't know. And then we go into the cycle of, if I had more time, I'd read the book. And we are in the bookstore, and we're looking at the book, knowing we don't have, or telling ourselves we don't have time to read the book, but what do we tell ourselves? I'll find the time. I'll make more time. I don't know how you're going to do that. You're not a time weaver. Okay? But we tell ourselves these stories. And then more often than not, if you're like me, you're driving home with the book in the bag in the seat next to you, really feeling bad about yourself. Because you're like, I'm just going to throw this book on the shelf with all the others. Or I might start the first chapter. I'll read the first chapter. I go, oh, that was good. I got to read the rest. And I'll put it on the pile of the currently reading books on my book stand, right? Of which there are like 5 or 6, of which I've all read the first chapter. But we think more is better. And then this is the last one, and this is perhaps the most insidious. We believe that that's just the way things are, that we can't change the situation. This is just how it is. The billionaires and the massive corporations will always make all the money and decide the laws and how we live. That's just the way it is. We got to scrimp and save for every last dollar. That's how the way it is. Can't share. Because if I share, I got less, you got more, and I'll need it someday. That's just the way it is. These are the myths of scarcity that drive a lot of our feelings of insecurity and lack of control in our lives. But when we begin to do the conscious work within, and we begin to embrace the wholeness that we are, that's how we begin to shift above the line. When I say embrace the wholeness that we are, what I mean is this. You are already all that you want. I am already all that I want. All the approval that I need, I am the source of it. All the security that I need, I am the source of it. Why am I the source of it? Because I'm divine. And there is no lack in God. If there's any time you struggle with this idea of God as a being, ask yourself this: can God want for anything? God is all there is. God is the fullness of life. We use words like omnipotence, all power, omniscience, all knowledge, omnipresence, present everywhere. If God is all, if there is no absence of God at any point anywhere, how can God want? Because want implies that you don't have. It was interesting, the song you sang today, the Use Me. And there's a line that says, God needs us to shine our light. And I remember first hearing that and God getting a little confused. Well, what do you mean God needs us? God doesn't need anything. God is all there is. There is no absence in God. So how can God need anything? God doesn't need anything from me. God doesn't need. God is the presence. God is the fullness of life. So how's that song make sense then? And then I realized this. The only way that God, wholeness, oneness, love, abundance is made visible in my life is as me. That need is not a being or a presence requiring me. Think of that phrase, God needs, is the only way it's going to happen. The only way abundance is going to show up in my life is when I embrace that I am abundant. The only way love is going to show up in my life is when I embrace and live the truth that I am love. The only way wholeness is going to show up in my life is when I embrace and know that I am whole. The only way peace is going to show up in my life is when I embrace, live, and lead as peace. When we embrace our wholeness, we make a commitment to be the source of all that we seek. This is actually our second principle. The first principle, God is. I'm paraphrasing it. Just God is, period. Absolute good, everywhere present, God is. And our second principle in unity is that all that God is the essence of who we are. All that God is the essence of who we are. That's our wholeness. And it's only when we begin to truly, truly believe and live and lead from that place that we can live our third principle, where we create our life experiences. And it's not so much that we make things out there differently. We make things in here different. And when we make things in here different, we see things out there different. When I realize that I am the source of my approval, my safety, and my control. And what I mean by control is not making things happen. Control is letting things happen and realizing that it's perfect the way it needs to be in this moment. If everything that's happening in this now moment is exactly what it needs to be, then I don't need to force the issue. I don't have to change anything. I simply need to embrace it and ask, what's mine to do? What is mine to do in this moment? But we spend a lot of time in the past, we spend a lot of time in the future, wishing, comparing, wanting. And the problem isn't so much that we shouldn't have safety. No, the problem is the wanting of it. Let's have an abundant life. But as long as we keep wanting it, what we're saying is that we don't have it. So the key is to let go of the wanting by embracing the wholeness and say that we are already it. What if you were to believe? What if you were to believe that you lacked nothing? What if you were to believe that you lacked nothing? That everything right now in this moment is exactly all that it needs to be in your life. It's a challenge, isn't it? It is a challenge. But it's only by embracing that challenge and living from that place that we get out of that cycle of lack and that cycle of want. Could you believe that there's nothing missing from your life? That you have, and even more importantly, that you are all that you need to be in this now moment. This is perhaps the thing we struggle with most. But it begins with releasing the lack thoughts. I want to lead us in a meditation now that speaks to that. And this meditation is actually in the book. When you get to it, I'm going to invite you in your Adventures in Faith groups this week to practice it or simply do it on your own. So, if you're comfortable, gently close the eyes, plant both feet on the floor. And I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and check in to see what your experience is right now. Just right now. Breathe deeply. Check in with yourself. What is your experience? Don't assign a label that isn't what is. Notice the breath, the air moving in and out. This breath sustains you. And there's enough air for all of us. Not one of us has ever had difficulty breathing because another in the room was breathing as well. And bring your attention to your physical body. Notice any sensations. What is the experience of your body right now? Can you embrace it without attaching labels of lack? In this moment, notice your experience of time. Notice in this moment, there is no past, there is no future. There is only now. If there is only now, is there not always enough time? The entirety of who you are exists only in this now moment. In this now moment, this precise now moment, in this precise place, in the exact seat in which you sit, right now, do you truly lack anything? When we are fully present to ourselves in every now moment, we have enough. We are enough. We only experience lack when we move outside of ourselves. Again, in this moment, this now moment, in this place, as you sit here, as you breathe, right now, there is nothing that you lack, because you are the wholeness, the fullness of divinity. There is no lack because I am whole. There is no lack because I am whole. Let's take that into the silence for a few moments. There is no lack. I am whole. There is no lack because I am whole. We hold that truth for all these prayer requests in our prayer box. Hold it and affirm in that for all these people, all these situations, the truth of their wholeness is remembered and realized. And should you hold that intention for another in your life, I invite you to say their names out loud now. In so doing, we see their wholeness. This is the power of affirmative prayer in unity, to remind ourselves and each other that we are already all that we want. That we are whole, that we are complete. And in so doing, we are transformed. And so it is. Amen and amen.
I breathe in, I breathe out, I take
Thank you, Reverend Ogun, for this morning, and that music was great. Thanks. All right. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize the rest of the beautiful souls who volunteered today, our prayer chaplains. Please rise if you are able. These wonderful people can meet with you for prayer or gratitude or to simply sit in silence with you after service. They will hold your prayers and intentions in the strictest of confidence. Also, if you are in need, we have home and hospital prayer chaplains that will do home visits for recuperation or hospital stays. Please see one of the home and hospital prayer chaplains for this, and you can call the office as well. And are you here today, Catherine or Nancy? Yeah, thank you. Remember, you can also submit your prayer request in the prayer box, which is located in the back of the room, and Unity on the River now has a dedicated phone line that takes prayer requests as well. Our prayer team and Silent Unity will pray over your request. And now's the time in our service when we prepare our tithes and offerings. Let's hold them and breathe in our energy of abundance as we say our affirmation. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
As you prepare your offerings and the ushers come up to collect them, couple extra announcements. We have a special event coming up that's going to be hosted by Meg, and she's going to be sharing a little bit about that now.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Sure. Christina Melpick and I took a wonderful pilgrimage of Divine Walk on the Camino de Santiago back in 2011. And we have a musical slide with all original music and then a slideshow that takes you on the walk with us and with a history about the Camino de Santiago in Spain itself. That is November 24th. It's right after service, 11:45. So bring a little sandwich if you're hungry, or and come on, or grab something from hospitality, and we'll be right in here.
Thank you, Meg. Also, next week, reminder, it's our Sacred Service Fair. So all our volunteer teams will have some booths set up in hospitality so that you can see some of the areas that you have available to serve here. One of those areas could potentially be Director of Operations. Michael Mooney, our current Director of Operations, will be ending his job here the first Sunday in December. I don't know if you guys know this, but Michael is actually in seminary now to become an ordained minister himself. And there he is. And one of his life goals or visions, he realizes he's been called to do lead spiritual retreat center, and he's got an opportunity to get a start on that in Maine. So he's saying yes to that, and I'm saying yes to him saying yes to that. So the Director of Operations position will be open starting next month. I've got some job descriptions in the Spiritual Resource Center counter. If any of you think you might be interested in that, it's also posted online. I'm conducting interviews as we speak. But Michael will still be with us a few more Sundays, so we'll say proper farewell to him a little bit later. And quick reminder, there's some of you who have contacted via email about spirit groups. If I have, you know what I'm talking about. If I haven't and you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay either way. But the spirit group folk, just reminder, the orientation is after church today, noon in the wing room. Those are all the additional announcements I think we have. Let us give thanks for the offering.
Someone has a third bag somewhere?
Oh, there we go. Jim. I'm just kidding. It's perfect. Hey, it's perfect. Jim serves as one of our money counters after service. So he was just getting a head start on collecting up the money. Also want to remind you, as always, you can go to unityontheriver.org/donate to give online at any point in time, including now on your cell phone during the service. So let's take a deep breath and be in gratitude for these gifts, however you chose to share them, whether here today or online. We are grateful for however you choose to invest in your spiritual community and invest in the continuation of its existence and the work that it does. And we give a portion of these back into the Amesbury community in various service organizations and the Unity movement, and for this we are grateful. Thank you. So it is.
It takes so many people who give up their time to help with our Sunday service. Thank you all that you do for our sacred service. This week's angels, Teresa, Marie, and Ed. And our teams, could you please stand if you are able? Folding team, podcast team, and the prayer shawl ministry team. Thank you for your work. Also, our board members, if you are here, would you please stand? Board members are available. They can answer any questions you may have after service. This week, Wednesday night service, those of you who come, it's this week, the 13th at 7 for Samedi with Manny Muros. And now our closing song, Go Light Your World.
Light your world. I just want to say something before we do our big song. We've got a Christmas concert coming up on December 13th, and choir members have said to me, we've invited other choir members, and people say, oh, I love to sing, but I can't really sing. If you love to sing, come on Thursday night and join us. You'll learn as you go. There's a learning curve, of course, but it's about joy. It's about celebration. So there are you have two more Thursday nights at 6:30. Come on, join us, and then after that, there's a cutoff. So come in these next two times, or then we have to say we can't invite anybody. But anyone can come on Sunday morning. We start at 8, okay? So carry your candle. This is a song that Patty Barkus used to sing. It is one of her signature songs, and she passed from this world almost to the day last year. And so we'll bring in her energy, and let's all sing this song together, because that's what we do. We go light our world as God, living as the God that we are. There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There is a spirit who brings the fire and ignites a candle and makes its home. Carry a candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world. Frustrated brother, see how he's tied to light his own candle some other way. See now your sister, she's been robbed and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. Come on now. Carry your
Thank you for honoring Patty in that way. Let us all stand, take the hand of our neighbor as we welcome in our children, the youth and family ministry, walking as the light.
We are walking as the light of God. 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 We are walking, woo! We are walking as the light of God. We are walking, woo! We are walking as the light of God.
Namaste. I stand in the presence. So today we did what we usually did, which is that the kids get a lot of different choices. So some of the kids were doing some play with balls, a bunch of kids were doing art, another group of kids were actually playing with Pokemon cards. And we had a conversation about how, like, what is unity? And like, how does the Unity Church exist compared to other religions? Because my daughter asked me, and so I brought that into church this week. Just to share something with you that you probably don't know, which I learned today. You know the expression, Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all? No. Never heard that expression? How many of you have heard that expression? There are over 14,000 different Pokemon. So talk about abundance in the universe. Just when it comes to Pokemon, there are 14,000 different Pokemon. Thank you.
The more you know. Let us stand, take the hand of our neighbor, affirm the truth for ourselves and for them. Let there be peace on earth.
The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed.
Go be the light.